The van hadn't moved in days. Parked half-cocked at the edge of a soybean field outside Deacon Ridge. It leaned like it was tired, left for dead. The August sun baked the metal until the paint blistered and peeled like old skin. No plates, no windows, no reason to be there. Deputy Travis Hale stood with his hand resting on the leash, watching his K9 Milo circle again. And again, not barking, not whining, just pacing tighter and tighter orbits, like he was drawing a line between the world outside and something unspeakable inside. Then Milo stopped and growled low in his throat. The call came in just after dawn. Hale had been sipping bad coffee from the station pot when dispatch radioed a report from a farmhand over at Hollow Creek. Something about a suspicious vehicle off Old Meadow Road. Unmarked, parked crooked near the tree line, half a mile from the road. No movement, no noise, just wrong. Travis had taken Milo, still groggy, and made the drive without lights. He didn't expect much. Probably another burnout kid looking for somewhere quiet to crash. But the longer he stared at the van, the more wrong it felt. It was an older Dodge Ram, maybe early 2000s. The kind of vehicle no one missed because no one remembered it. The rear doors were latched shut with wire twisted, like someone didn't want them ever opening again. The side paneling was coated in dust and bug splatter, but the tires weren't flat, which meant it hadn't been there long. Yet the field said otherwise. The weeds had grown thick around the wheels. When Travis knelt and brushed the soil, he found dry blood crusted along the sliding door track. Not fresh, but not old enough to flake. He stood, looked over at Milo. The dog was circling, always counterclockwise, always low to the ground, ears flat, hackles raised like wire bristles. His snout twitched with something he couldn't understand. He refused to go near the van's back, kept glancing at the undercarriage, then away. That's when Travis called it in. Unit 3 to base. I've got an unmarked vehicle, possibly involved in a 207 or 245. No movement. Need backup in forensics. A pause, and copy that. 3. Sheriff Dillon's en route. Hale rubbed at the scar above his brow, an old souvenir from the day the divorce papers landed. He didn't trust many people anymore. Dillon wasn't one of them. Milo let out a short bark. Travis turned, just in time to see the dog sit hard in the dirt, ears forward, eyes locked on the rear door of the van. Not moving now, not even blinking. Something was in there. He took a step forward. Stopped. There was a smell. Not death. Not yet. Something older. Rotting food, maybe, or mildew. The kind of wetness that didn't come from rain, but from time. He didn't want to open that door alone. The sheriff rolled up 20 minutes later in his muddy Tahoe, boots crunching gravel as he approached. Sheriff Dillon looked like the kind of man who still hunted elk with a bow and wore his badge like a birthright. 53, gray at the temples, and always carrying too much weight in the way he looked at you. "Where's the body?" he asked, no preamble. "I don't know that there is one," Travis replied. Dillon eyed the dog. Milo seemed sure. They stood together for a moment in the silence. The only sound was cicadas and wind sweeping across soybean stalks. Dillon knelt, examined the blood on the door track, his brow furrowed. Then he rose, brushing dust from his jeans. "You checked the interior yet?" "No." "Well," Dillon said, unholstering his sidearm, "let's open her up." The wire was twisted tight. Dillon used bolt cutters from the Tahoe's trunk. The snap was loud in the silence. Travis positioned himself to the side, hand on his Glock. Milo stayed behind, rigid. Dillon yanked the doors open and recoiled. The smell hit first, like mold and bleach and something organic that had soured. Flies exploded outward in a black swarm, rising in a dark cloud into morning air. Inside it was worse. A mattress stained with something dark and dried. A cooler, lid cracked. Chains bolted into the floor. Zip ties. A phone, cheap burner, smashed and discarded. And on the wall opposite the doors, photos, dozens of them. Polaroids, taped haphazardly to the metal wall. Faces, children, some smiling, most not, some asleep or unconscious. One, in the lower corner, had a bruise blooming beneath his eye. His mouth gagged with a strip of shirt. Travis stared, breath frozen in his lungs. "Jesus Christ," Dylan muttered. Milo began to whine. The van was impounded within the hour. Crime scene tape fluttered in the summer breeze as deputies took photos, bagged evidence, and tried not to breathe too deep. Hale sat in the front seat of his cruiser, door open, Milo panting beside him. He kept seeing the Polaroids, not just the bruises or the tape, but the eyes. None of the kids looked directly at the camera. All were looking just slightly off, like someone was standing there saying something to them, holding something behind the lens. He lit a cigarette. Even though he quit 3 years ago, Milo didn't flinch, just leaned against his leg. "You okay?" someone asked. Travis turned to see Deputy Regina Mays, newish, sharp, and just cautious enough not to trust anyone outright. That's why Travis liked her. "Define okay," he said, exhaling smoke through his nose. She leaned on the car, eyes squinting toward the van. "I heard one of the Polaroids had a date on the bottom corner. Said July 2006. You believe that?" He nodded slowly. Some of the film was expired. That's how we know it's real. Regina whistled low. What the hell was he doing with them for 19 years? Travis didn't answer. He knew she wasn't really asking him. That night, the photos haunted him. He poured whiskey into a chipped glass and sat on the edge of his porch, listening to the cicadas rise again. Milo lay at his feet, ears twitching. Travis reached into his desk drawer and pulled out the envelope. Inside were 4 photos. Not from today. From before. Old case. Unsolved. He'd kept them because he couldn't let go. For kids. All missing between 2004 and 2007. No links. No suspects. All from rural towns no one could point on a map. The kind of cases that slipped through cracks because there was no one left to scream loud enough. But now, he looked again at the boy with the bruised eye. It was him. Same jawline. Same eyes. He checked the photo tag. Daniel Wyatt, age 10. Missing since June 2006. He hadn't aged, which meant one of 2 things. Either Daniel died right after that photo, or he was still alive, still out there, still under someone's control. And Travis knew something else, something deeper. Whoever had been driving that van, they hadn't been working alone. They found the second van, before sunrise, parked in a dry creek bed just off the Carter trailhead, maybe 6 miles from where the first had been discovered. Same model, same build, but this one had been torched. Fire-blackened ribs of steel arched like a carcass, the air still smelling of melted rubber and scorched cloth. No chains this time. No Polaroids. Just ash. And the unmistakable stench of old smoke and gasoline. Sheriff Dillon stood with his arms crossed, jaw twitching as the wind caught his coat. He looked at Travis like it was his fault the world had cracked open and leaked something rotten into Deacon Ridge. "You think someone's cleaning house?" Dillon asked. Travis didn't answer at first. He stared into the skeletal van, watching the soot drift off what might have been a mattress spring. "No," he finally said. "I think someone knew we were coming, and they panicked." Dillon's eyes narrowed. Then who the hell tipped them off? That was the question, and Travis didn't like any of the answers it pointed toward. Back at the station, they laid everything out. 2 vans, same build. 1 intact, filled with evidence of abduction. 1 burned, location remote, just off an old hiking path that no one had used in years. The timing was too tight. The second van had to be torched after the first was found, but not long after. Someone local, someone with ears to the ground, someone on the inside. Travis rubbed his temples as he studied the board. It looked like every other wall of photos and strings he'd ever put up in his 15 years wearing a badge. Only this one didn't have time to gather dust. Regina pointed at a printed Polaroid. "This one here, Daniel Wyatt. You said he looked familiar?" "He is familiar." Travis pulled a file from his desk drawer. "He was one of mine. Disappeared from a gas station restroom off Route 6 back in '06. His parents were going through a custody battle. Everyone thought it was the dad. Turned out the dad had an alibi. Case went cold. She nodded slowly, then paused. You said one of mine. Travis hesitated. He didn't want to say it. Not out loud. Two others on this wall were from towns I worked cases in. Different counties. Years apart. All kids. All missing without a trace. I didn't connect them back then because they didn't look connected. But now they do. He nodded once. Same face. Same camera. Same van. She leaned against the desk, arms crossed. So we're looking at a pattern going back almost 2 decades. Different counties, different jurisdictions, but someone keeping it all together. Someone careful. Travis stared at the board. No one hides this long without help. That night, Travis drove out to the Wyatt house. What was left of it, anyway? The boy's mother, Lorna Wyatt, had moved out years ago, but the house still sat, unclaimed, boarded, hollow. The trees had grown wild around it, weeds bursting through the porch cracks like they were trying to pull the whole place back into the earth. He parked down the hill. Milo jumped down beside him, nose twitching at the air. Inside, it was must and dust and mouse droppings. But something else lingered, too. Something quieter. He moved carefully, stepping over broken floorboards and curled wallpaper. He stopped at the back bedroom, the boys' old room. Everything had been stripped. No furniture, no toys. But on the wall, beneath a layer of faded paint, something stuck out. Scratches. For, in a tight pattern, like small fingernails trying to dig their way out. Milo let out a soft whine behind him. Travis crouched. The marks weren't old enough to be from 2006. Someone had been here more recently. He didn't sleep. Instead, he pored over the old records, property deeds, transfer notices, asset trails, all the kind of things you only start combing through when your gut tells you the truth is in the fine print. And there it was. The Wyatt house had been purchased twice, once in 2010 by a shell company out of Georgia, and again in 2019 by CW Holdings, a real estate firm with one listed contact, Charles W. Dillon. Travis stared at the name for a long time. Could have been a coincidence. W's a common middle initial, but his gut twisted like wire. He looked back at the Polaroid. Daniel's eyes weren't just looking away from the camera. They were looking at someone. Someone standing just out of frame. Next morning, Travis stopped by the sheriff's office. Dillon was inside, behind a heavy oak desk that had belonged to 4 generations of lawmen before him. He looked up, cold-eyed and tired. You got something? I want to talk about CW Holdings, Travis said. Dillon paused. Barely. Then leaned back in his chair. You sniffing up the wrong leg, Hale. Travis didn't blink. You bought the Wyatt property in 2019, after it had been abandoned for over a decade. Why? Dillon folded his arms. Investment. Land was cheap. Wasn't for sale. Then I made an offer. Travis stepped closer. You were already on the force when Daniel Wyatt disappeared. You were lead on that case before I took over. You had access to every file, every witness. You want to say something, Deputy? Go ahead and say it. I think you've been covering for someone. Maybe not at first. Maybe it was just a tip, a misreport, forget to file this here and there. But somewhere along the line, you crossed the line for good. Dillon stood slowly. You watch yourself. Milo growled from behind Travis. Who is it? Travis asked. Who are you protecting? Dillon's eyes flared just for a second. Then he sat back down. Leave it alone. Travis turned and walked out. But the weight in his chest told him he wasn't wrong. Later that afternoon, Regina found him at the river docks. She handed him a file. Burned van? We ran the serial on the frame. Stolen from a repo lot in Tennessee last year. Connected? Maybe. But this, she tapped the folder, this is bigger. You were right about the shell companies. They bought up 7 properties in 3 counties since 2018. All remote, all formerly owned by families of missing children. He stared at her. 7? She nodded. And guess whose name keeps popping up in the property trail? Travis already knew. Dillon. That night, they followed him. Dylan's Tahoe moved through back roads like he wasn't thinking about who might be watching. Down through Mason Hollow, past the old rail depot, then west, where the cell towers cut out and the trees grew tight. He pulled into a clearing behind what looked like a storage barn. Lights were on inside. Travis and Regina parked half a mile back, moving in on foot. Milo didn't bark, just walked silent, ears flat, tail low. Travis's flashlight caught the glint of fresh tire tracks. They circled the barn, weapons drawn, breath held, voices inside. One man, one woman, a kid, two, barely audible. Then metal screeched. A van door opening. Travis burst in first. What he saw made him stop cold. A boy, maybe 14, strapped to a gurney. A woman in nurse's scrubs, holding a sedative. And standing beside her was Sheriff Dillon, gun drawn. Calm. Travis froze. Regina stepped in behind him. The woman gasped. The kid whimpered. Dillon didn't blink. "You shouldn't have come," he said. Travis raised his weapon. "Drop it. Now!" Dillon lowered his gun slowly. "You don't get it," he said softly. "They don't belong out there. They're not like the others. They remember things they shouldn't. And they bring it back with them. Nightmares. Screaming fits. Visions. You try explaining that to a parent. We're doing them a kindness." Regina's voice shook. "You're trafficking kids." "We're protecting families from the truth," Dillon said. "No," Travis growled. "You're just hiding it." Milo lunged first, snarling, teeth bared. The nurse shrieked. The syringe clattered to the ground. In the chaos, Dillon moved to grab the boy. Regina fired once, clean. Dillon dropped. The woman bolted. Travis gave chase. He caught her at the treeline, tackled her hard. She whispered, breath hitching, "You have no idea what you're doing." He looked into her eyes and saw nothing, just empty calm, like she'd already accepted her place in hell. Back at the station, the boy was identified. Tyler Gibbons, missing from Kentucky, 2021. He didn't speak for hours. When he finally did, it was to Milo. He whispered something into the dog's ear, then closed his eyes. And for the first time in 2 years, he slept. 3 days later, the rain came. Not soft, not summer rain, but a thick, silver downpour that turned the dust into mud and blurred the tree line into a smear of green and shadow. The town of Deacon Ridge settled back into silence, like it always did after a scandal. Everyone pretending not to know, pretending they'd never seen. But the truth didn't go away just because the sheriff was dead. It stayed in the dirt, in the files, in the kids who'd been taken, and the parents who'd buried hope like a body. And Travis Hale wasn't done. They tried to keep it quiet. Suicide during a standoff was what the paper said. No mention of the nurse. No mention of the gurney. The official statement barely used the word kid. Just a minor, rescued unharmed. No further details. Regina slammed the newspaper down on his desk. "They're burying it." "Of course they are," Travis muttered. "They always do." He didn't tell her he'd been up most of the night digging deeper, or that he'd pulled 2 boxes from the evidence room without signing them out, or that he'd called a contact at the bureau. He didn't trust anyone, not after what Dillon had confessed. Regina leaned against the desk, arms folded. "What do you think he meant? About the kids not being like the others?" "I think he was repeating something someone told him," Travis said. "Something he believed because it made his part in all of this easier to live with." She was quiet for a beat. Then, "You still think Daniel Wyatt's alive?" Travis didn't answer, because the truth was, he knew it. The boy, Tyler, spoke little. But what he said, that third morning chilled everyone who heard it. They had brought in a trauma counselor, some specialist from Nashville. But it was Milo who finally coaxed the words from the boy's mouth. It came in a whisper, while he sat with the dog curled beside him on the station couch. He said we weren't people. Travis, sitting nearby with a notepad he hadn't dared write in, leaned forward. "Who said that?" "The man in the woods." "Was it Dillon?" Tyler shook his head, eyes distant. "No, the other one. The man with the scar and the black gloves." He never came near the van, but he was always at the tree line, watching. Regina and Travis exchanged a glance. "Did he ever say his name?" she asked softly. Tyler didn't answer, but he lifted a shaking hand and pointed at the photo wall Travis had set up behind his desk. Not at any of the kids, but to the bottom edge of the board, to a name no one had noticed before. E. Martin, attached to a long-closed missing persons case out of Camden County, GA. Travis stared. Then something clicked. It wasn't a victim. It was a witness. 20 years ago, Elijah Martin had reported a boy running barefoot through his property. Said the boy looked drugged, disoriented. But by the time deputies got there, the boy was gone. Martin claimed he saw a white van in the woods. No one followed up. The case was filed as a mental health incident. Travis pulled the old audio from archive storage. The tape crackled with age, the voice tinny. They weren't right, those kids. Their eyes didn't blink normal. They didn't speak. Just stood there, shaking, like animals. Who was with them? I don't know. Someone tall, always behind them, never spoke. Travis froze the tape. Regina leaned over his shoulder. "He's describing the same thing, isn't he?" He nodded, which means this has been happening a hell of a lot longer than we thought. And Elijah Martin might still be alive. The drive out to the Martin property took 2 hours. Long stretches of road with nothing but power lines and rusted mailboxes. Travis remembered driving these same routes years ago, when missing kids were still just individual tragedies, not pieces of the same pattern. The house was more cabin than home, set deep in pine woods thick with fog and moss. A blue tarp hung over half the roof. The porch sagged like a broken back. An old man answered the knock. Elijah Martin? Depends who's asking. Travis held out his badge. "Deputy Hale, we're not here to arrest you. Just want to talk about something you saw a long time ago." The man stared at them, then at Milo. "You brought the dog," he said. "Good." Inside, it smelled of pipe smoke and rainwater. Every surface cluttered with old papers, books, jars of something thick and yellowing. Elijah sat in a rocking chair, hands folded tight. "They said I was crazy." "I don't think you were," Travis said. The old man's eyes flicked toward the window. "They still come sometimes," he said. "Late. Always at the tree line. Never past it." "What do they want?" "Not sure, but I know they don't want to be seen." Regina leaned forward. "Who are they?" Martin looked at her, eyes wet and glassy. "They're the ones who never got caught. The ones Dylan was afraid of." He reached down beside his chair, pulled out a shoebox, lid duct taped shut. Inside, photos. Dozens of them. Polaroids, just like the ones in the van. But these were older. Late 80s, early 90s. Same kids, same expressions, same tree line. Regina's voice caught. "Why do you have these?" "They left them. I think they wanted me to see. Maybe they thought I'd be scared quiet. But I saved them, because someone had to." Travis felt his chest tighten. "These kids, are they still alive?" Martin didn't answer. He just pointed toward the back door. "Sometimes, when it's real quiet, I hear them out there, not screaming, not crying, just humming, like they're trying to remember the sound of home." That night, Travis didn't go home. He sat in his truck, Milo beside him, watching the edge of the Martin property where the trees grew thickest. The world felt small out there, too quiet, like the sky was holding its breath. Then Milo growled, low and deep. Travis followed his gaze. At the edge of the tree line, something moved. A figure, tall, still, then another, smaller, barefoot, children. He got out slowly, flashlight in one hand, gun holstered. "Milo, stay." He stepped toward the trees. The figure didn't move. Neither did the kids. He shined the light, and the face that looked back was Daniel Wyatt. Same age, not a day older than the photo from 2006. He froze. His voice cracked. "Daniel?" The boy didn't answer, just looked at him. Behind Daniel, another figure moved. The tall one, face obscured in shadow. Long arms, Black gloves. Travis reached for his radio. But the flashlight flickered, then went dead. Everything went dark. He heard a voice. Not loud, not angry, just wrong. They were never yours to find. Then the boy was gone. So was the figure. The woods were empty again. Travis didn't speak about it. Not to Regina. Not in the report. He kept the box of photos hidden beneath the floorboards of his house. He told himself the kids had run. That someone would find them one day. That maybe someday they'd speak for themselves. But deep down, he knew better. Some things weren't meant to be found. Some vanishings weren't kidnappings. They were deliveries. 6 months later, Travis quit the department. He bought a small cabin near Hollow Creek and lived quiet. No badge, no paperwork. Just a Milo in the long fields where wind moved like ghosts across the soybeans. But some nights, when the moon was too full, Milo would wake, not barking, just watching the window. And Travis would rise, heart heavy, and stare toward the woods, toward the tree line, where shadows moved like they remembered being boys once, where eyes still watched in silence, and where one day someone would finally answer for all of it.